We started ZZ Top in 1969. We carried on without stop, after literally 7 years of nonstop.
Billy Gibbons doesn't need scandals to stay relevant. He doesn't scream on stage, chase trends, or flood your feed with viral stunts. Walt Disney Pictures. He doesn't have to crash guitars on stage to show that he's a rock star. Needs scandals to make the news or stupid things that people will remember. Billy Gibbons with a beard that reached his chest, brand name dark sunglasses, and always their pearly gates Les Paul has become an unmistakable symbol of Southern American rock music for more than 50 years. Century as the lead singer of ZZ Top, a band that changed the way Texas blues were played. Gibbons is not just a great artist, guitar player, but the personification of unwavering commitment to music identity. A lot of artists follow the latest trends, but he decides to stay put and stand firm in the fast-paced modern world, holding on to his soul, his groove, and his riffs. It's strange that refusal to change has made him unique in a crazy rock world where fame often comes with damage. Billy Gibbons doesn't stand out for what he did, not what he hasn't. There been any drug abuse or crime, marriages, no bankruptcies, and no giving up the band in the middle of a tour. Never changes playing music and being true to it. Behind the calm body, behind that silver beard and snarling voice is from a boy who was crazy about Elvis to goodbye to the last member of ZZ Top, worldwide fame to the heartbreak of he lost his best friend from a studio, from a musician to a living American icon leave behind. And the big question is, how has Billy Gibbons was able to stay alive while the rocks around him burn through a lot of stories? The story that in his early years, Billy Gibbons was born in Houston on December 16, 1949. Texas is not in a poor neighborhood or a faraway place country, but into a middle-class family. His family has a long history of art. Fred Royal Gibbons, his father, was an conductor of an orchestra, stage director, and had worked for MGM Studios. In that music in the home wasn't a luxury. It was language. It was the only thing always there at every meal and in all of Billy's childhood dreams. In 1955, Bill was only 5 years old when his father took him to see Elvis live show. The little boy standing in what he said shocked everyone. "I saw a man who had just some notes could set the whole auditorium on fire." Billy could remember more than just the guitar sound. He could remember the lights on the stage, sweat, the screams. What he would say finally soon, call the real life of rock and roll. After Billy started playing drums, he switched to guitar when he was a young teen. His very first instrument was a Gibson Melody Maker. Was the present that marked the start of a journey no one saw coming would last longer than 60 years. But more Billy, the guitar itself is less important than. We're very lucky to grow up in a rich musical setting, from dad's jazz to the blues on the Texas street to the new wave of California rock. As a teen, Billy went to the Hollywood, going to professional school, part-time institution for artists to be there. He went to school with people like Liza, you had Minnelli, and more importantly seeing what goes on behind the scenes of big recording studios in Hollywood. He began to play around here with sound gear like fuzz effects, tube amps, and the bad tone that would come after. Describe Billy Gibbons's childhood in ZZ Top: tragedy, but it wasn't a happy time either. Was there a clear way for him to go? You are born into a good family. Family that is materially sufficient. The only what can make you stand out is love, and that love for Gibbons lived in every riff that B.B. King ever shaking note of Jimmy Reed's every roar as a guitar tries to be heard in a. It was too loud for Billy Gibbons to grow up. He spent his childhood running away toward music, a trip that changed his early on artist identity. It wasn't a naughty childhood, it was the childhood of someone who knew even that music didn't need to be loud then. It was enough for it to feel right. Having a quiet but famous guitar player started to come into the light early during the late 1960s, when most of a lot of young Americans were against the war. Billy's psychedelic music and movements at the time, Gibbons was only 20 years old. Own band called the Moving Sidewalks was a rock band that played acid rock attitudes that were directly affected by Jimi Hendrix, and Cream put out a single album in 1968 called Flash. But it wasn't just the music was what brought them together. Something between Gibbons and Jimi Hendrix. Rise, a guitarist known for having a very good ear whenever they were on the Mike Douglas show. One of those is Billy Gibbons, the best young guitarists in the United States. Not all compliments make people want to take note, though. When it comes from Hendrix, the whole guitar world turned around. Toward the young man from Texas, it wasn't for long that the sidewalks moved. The psychedelic rock was too loud. Seen along with Gibbons's longing for, he went back to more than one thing. His roots in Southern blues, and from a new idea to start a band with only 3 people, but they sound like strong enough to fight an army. In 1969, ZZ Dusty Hill and Top were born together. On drums and Frank Beard on bass. The band began playing like many others. Gigs in bars and arenas around town, opening for big-name acts, but from the start it was clear to Gibbons what he wanted to do. Want ZZ Top to be just another blues band. It was his dream for the band to become a cultural sign of the music of the American South. It sounded like highways with gas and dust, summer nights that are too hot to drink. Their first album was called ZZ Top. Came out in 1971. It didn't really shake the market, but told us something important. This was a band with a unique sound and riffs that were easy to understand but stuck together like glue, and sounds that are dripping with Texas charm in each note. The music Billy Gibbons played wasn't loud. Plan, he picked to build the album slowly. Book tour after book tour until America talked about the name ZZ Top as a rising star. It wasn't a breakout fame, it sounded like a deep, steady rumble, the sound of a diesel engine, clear, and in the middle of it all Billy made the riff and the rhythm. Driver, the person who set the bands, the long beard is a unique way to look. The dark glasses with the silver edges, Western clothes. He did more than just play music. He changed himself and the other guys in his band into a brand that would live on to become one of the most durable rock bands. With 3 members, ZZ Top started out with blues and turned into boogie and slowly became an important voice that put American music on the map. But everything from smoky bars in Texas to the biggest stages in the world began in Bill Gibbons has one very simple idea in Don't Worry, we don't need more people. We need the right people and one guitar. That feels something about their job success. If 1970s were the most important years for them, there was ZZ Top in the 1980s. It was the best time for Gibbons and his band. Not just in music but also as a force in famous people. How did a 3-piece blues rock band goes global at the height of the synth-pop era? The answer is on MTV and neon-lit stages in the very heart of Gibbons's music. Soul and good eyesight, a masterful mix of old and new done in a planned way, never giving up the original spirit. 1970 to 1973, when Trey Ombers came out, it gave ZZ above the American South and onto on the world stage. The track Lang, a mean blues riff that was based on a well-known brothel, turned into one of the all-time great rock songs. But that it was just the start for Billy Gibbons. He knew more than just how to play the guitar. How to send music as a picture. At the time when MTV changed how people listened to rock music, that ZZ Top released Eliminator 1983 was a groundbreaking album in band's work, with hits like Man in a Sharp Dress, Give Me All Your the Legs. ZZ Top didn't just love and control the radio waves, they won TV screens with bright, funny pictures. Old cars are shown in music videos, 2 men with beards and 2 beautiful women in shades that went from dark to symbols that make Eliminator. Sold more than 10 million copies in the US to become one of the most popular albums of the decade. What made it even more, what made this unique, was that it included ZZ Top's music has never had electronic parts. Lost its roots, Gibbons stayed true to his simple but catchy blues riffs, his vocals that sound gritty, and a stage presence that was almost still but gave off an air of clear authority. From 1983 to 1990, ZZ Top was a multi-platform trend that started in commercials and movies that live on in Lego figurines and almost becoming the well-known American rock group. The band was added to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2004 and is thought to be one of the most popular trios in music history. With Rush and the Police, Billy Gibbons stayed through it all. The producer of Sonic Architecture and the ZZ Top's important person to talk to. He didn't need to yell to show that he was in charge. The sound of his guitar was loud enough to please be quiet. Gibbons' solos weren't, they had technical showpieces and swing, swagger, and that delay in signing that making people think he was talking through the strings. During this time, Billy also grew his horizons, making work for other artists, having worked with people like Slash and Stone Age Queens, and even appearing as a guest star on the TV show Bones as the man who raised Angela Montenegro, giving his character to a new generation without putting his identity. If there's one thing that made Billy Gibbons a well-known figure in as the tides of pop music change all the time, his consistency. He never changed himself by tearing down the old, just looked into it more until the world saw that the old could be the only something that lasts. For Gibbons, for me, the best guitar riff isn't about speed or note count, it's about being brief, definite, and just the right place, just like how he led ZZ Top in a quiet but without a doubt problems and tests in the world of rock, where bands often break up after just a few years because of money or abuse. The fact that ZZ Top has stayed the same for more than 50 years is nothing less than miraculous, and friendship was at the heart of that miracle. Friendship between Billy Gibbons and Bud in the summer of 2021, Dusty Hill. In an instant, that bond was broken. Gibbons, it wasn't just your loss, that void in his life could not be filled. Music. On July 28, 2021, Dusty Hill, co-founder, played with Gibbons for a long time and passed away while he slept at home in Houston. The news was posted on ZZ Top's official page. Wasn't very long, but for Billy's was a deep crack in his otherwise quiet life. Don't cry for the cameras, not a lot of words, just a promise he picked to honor. Dusty told me, keep on when you play, don't stop because of me. Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Billy Gibbons. No one can really replace you in music, but Gibbons kept his word. He started again a few days after Dusty's death, going on tour with Wood Francis, Dusty's longtime bass tech, taking over the stage. The lights stayed on, and the riff stuck around. But the pulse that wouldn't stop from Dusty's bass was what held everything together. It seemed like Gibbons was gone every beat. Gibbons could not hide the for all time silence behind the scenes. He carried one of Dusty brings his bass guitars on stage as a ceremony to remember. He still looked at her every night. On the stage's left side, where Dusty used to stand still as if they were listen for his friends' notes during their career, ZZ Top were often called conservatives, saying the same old things. The blues rock sound doesn't want to change like other people, but Billy Gibbons, it was never important to change just to fit market trends. I don't play to win. Stay true to my sound when you play. Told Guitar World that even when playing around with electronics on Eliminator or adding new tastes to on his solo albums, Gibbons stayed true to main idea, simplicity, slowness, but always feel and groove. Unlike many rock stars who want to be in the news, Billy Gibbons hasn't been in the glare when he's not on stage getting things in the desert in Texas. Old cars and strange artifacts are rarely. Some have shared his private life, others called him an eccentric recluse, just being too shy, but in reality Gibbons has just picked a traditional method where social media doesn't rule your life, trends that won't last when you keep your peace and quiet in your daily life. Your guitar talks more than any interview. He doesn't need to shock her. Fight getting old, and maybe that's why Billy Gibbons, but not every week. This is still one of the most respected rock stars by everyone. During his career, Billy Gibbons has stayed away from most of the problems, drugs used by the music business, personal fights, and controversial sound bites. But life's rules can't be broken. Loss, his only friends are loneliness and silent trials. He has chosen to face them the only way he knows how. Plays on and lets music speak. Family life. In a world where rock stars are often in the news for cheating, divorce, or having an affair, self-destructive habits, Billy Gibbons is pretty much an oddity. He's not caught in fancy nightclubs, or do you post loving pictures of him with pretty young lovers on social media. Life for more than 50 years in the spotlight is still a soft veil, enough to be impossible to get through, but honest enough for the people who care about him to feel its depth. Gilligan, Stillwater and Gibbons got married in 2005. When she was 56 years old, the wedding wasn't very fancy. The press wrote about their vows. They had been deeply in love with each other for almost 20 years before finally merely calling each other husband and wife when they knew each other outside of need to make promises. Gilmore doesn't have a rock wife in the usual sense. She rarely shows up public and hasn't used her before the fame of her husband to get attention. That's exactly why their dating has stood so quietly and firmly, with two people who don't have kids split up their free time in between quiet homes, and he spends a lot of time in California and Texas. himself by collecting old cars, guitars and weird art. Those who know him well describe Gibbons as careful, quiet, and a fan of order. Someone who doesn't like being bothered. That's why he avoided a scandal or the kind of sound that goes viral bites. A lot of rockers from his time have become well known for well-known interests besides music are custom cars, and his 1948 Cadillac was called Cadzilla. An idea he had on paper and helped design is now thought of as a Gibbons doesn't like the American car culture. He only collects cars and sees each one as a work of art, a metal riff, as he said that cars are like guitars, need to sound good and have soul design, and you should honor them if you want them to go a long way. Asked him and Dusty Hill why they kept their beards for so long and why they never moved away from that famous picture for decades, Billy would just smile and say, because you can't lie. If you let it grow it will tell you what's real if you let it go long enough. There's no need to prove anything with flash. Gibbons's everyday life has been shaped by he plays music in time with soul and doesn't care what anyone may be. That's why after half a 100 years in the chaos of rock music he is still himself. He is a guitar legend. From the dust of Texas but with the heart, a man who knows how to look enough. This is something Billy Gibbons never tried to make people remember him because he chose to. You should live so that if someone when they think of him, they might smile and say for a life, that was a good man, that has been through a lot of stages. That may be all there is to it, legacy. And it's not as flashy as Eddie Van Halen, isn't as flashy technically as Steve Vai, and not the type to shout for attention like a lot of other guitarists. But Billy Gibbons went in a different direction, where his guitar glides instead of racing slowly, like a trip down the dusty roads of the South in the United States. And it is just this quietness that has made him one of the most important American rock guitarists of the past 60 years. Gibbons's style of playing is a mix of tradition and gut feeling. He pulls from the deep well of blues, a language that is old but full of feeling. This is the southern boogie groove, adding a little Marshall amp growl tone that was meant to be dirty. But what? Not his speed or difficulty that makes him stand out. Billy Gibbons knows when to show restraint, when not to play, and when to play. It's not what you play that makes music, about what you don't play. Billy once said at a workshop, in a time when a lot of artists measure how influential they are by views and followers, Gibbons still has true to a basic music philosophy: sound must have feeling, and the artist must have a name. That's what makes him a good example. A guitarist for many years, Dave Grohl, Jack White, Dan Auerbach, and the Black Keys, even John Mayer, has all of them in public said nice things about Billy Gibbons, not only for his skills but also for his honesty in the music he chooses, and its effects go beyond guitarists. While Gibbons was in charge, ZZ Top became a culture icon. The picture of two long cowboys with beards riding in a red Chevy and MTV videos turned into a sign of the 1980s. These pictures, they still show up in movie ads, even video games. That changed Gibbons into not just an artist, but a brand that stands for a very American spirit. Cool and easy and unwilling to give in his work is an important part of Gibbons' legacy. 1959 Gibson Les Paul, which was called Pearly Gates, the guitar behind a lot of Gibson, later reissued it with the famous riffs like a signature, and it turned into one of the most wanted guitars in the world of collectors. Besides music, Gibbons has made a name for himself by designing old cars and fashion. He's worked with custom glasses stores, car shops, and even appeared on well-known TV shows. But no, he stays no matter where he goes. Without a doubt himself. Long beard, dark, it looks like the shades and cowboy hat are saying, "Who am I?" was made a long time ago. That's Billy Gibbons' most powerful trait. He doesn't chase the times, but he stays strong in them. Doesn't have to yell to be remembered, he only needs to play one note. The world goes quiet. Life at an age when a lot of artists have given up are living off of what their past gave them. While Billy Gibbons stays firmly rooted on stage, a hard-working craftsman who just does not want to slow down after the sad death of his longtime friend Dusty Hill in 2021, he didn't choose to rest or hide. Instead, followed through on his promise by go on tour with ZZ Top in the US and abroad. Every show for him is a tribute to the past, to the crowd, and to a friend who can't take it anymore. Keeping ZZ Top alive next to him, Gibbons has kept up a lively solo Work since Perfecto Mundo 2015 with to add Afroban flavors to the usual grid of 2018's Big Bad Blues and the desert added textures to Hardware 2021. Each of his solo albums has been a short, but he doesn't repeat this deep experiment. He stays true to himself and his roots. Artists don't often have this much freedom. Whose work spans more than 50 years. Gibbons keeps writing in 2024 and 2025. Show that age isn't a barrier. Fuel for music that is deeper and more real. He put out the single Living It Up down in Texas, helped make the soundtrack for the TV show Landmen, and is getting ready to release his fourth album by himself. ZZ Top is making plans for their first new record in over 20 years. Still, Bill Gibbons has a lot more work to do on the road. He went on tour with the BFGs in early 2025 and is now in charge of ZZ Top through in the summer on the Elevation Tour, more than 50 dates all over North America. When Frank Beard had to step in as drummer, been sick and can't work, Gibbons led the band forward, just like he has through a lot of changes over the years. Never getting lost, there aren't any, there won't be any loud calls to politics. What Gibbons calls for through calm by staying true to the music and living just a thought. Music never stops, it moves slowly, and I haven't hit it yet. That shift yet, so even at age 75 Bruce Gibbons is still on stage. Not for the cheers or the lights, but since it's the only place where Billy's music really comes to life. Gibbons has never been a loud person. Doesn't flail or stomp across the stage his arms like some of his rock peers. He just stands still, long-bearded to the left, strumming the strings with the right hand. He